buddies, like where it's just like a small group of them who did golfing in the morning with the coach.
That's fun.
Yeah, so that was nice. But for the most part, it's been virtual, and he just wanted a little time off. So he has time off,
My youngest is 11, and all his basketball camps were canceled, but he did a chef camp at the farm, and it was outdoors, and he really he enjoyed it. They wore masks outside, and cooked from the farm. So
that's great.
yeah,
What a cool experience. I want to do that. I mean, I think adults do that, right?
yeah. I often put their summer schedule together and think I would do this.
Yep. Yep. I guess I'll learn golf. Why not? Anyways, good to see you. It looks like we have Selena, Corinne. I'm not sure if you're Corinne or Corinne, so you can tell me if I'm wrong. Amy, Cheryl. Sorry, say it again. Oh, I just missed my chance to learn how to say her name.
My internet has been terrible all day. It's Corinne.
Corinne. Okay, well, good. I'm glad it was one of the options I said.
Yes.
Good. And we've got, Selena says hi. Great. We're recording this for any evaluators who don't get a chance to get on today, just so you know. Thanks for being with us. We'll wait just another minute. You guys are welcome to use your cameras. I know there have been some meetings where we have presenters, and I've asked people not to use cameras, but today you are welcome to do so, because it's just going to be a conversation. There are no presentations. All right, we're right at the top of the hour. So just to remind you, this was in the meeting notice that Len sent out, but just to remind you that the purpose of this meeting, one of the evaluators asked if we could have a listening session so that we, OSAP SIG Network could have a listening session to hear the challenges you foresee this year with data collection, and with a couple of purposes. One, if those evaluators on the line, or even project people who are on the line, have ideas and answers, this is a great time to say it. So it's a listening session where I want to hear your problems. And Lynn, if you could take notes during this time, that would be great to make sure that we capture all of the issues.
Okay.
Thanks. And also, but if you as an evaluator or project person hear a challenge and you've already thought of an idea for it or think of it off the top of the head, please jump in at that time. It'll take 15 minutes to get everyone's challenges down, most likely, but this is a great time, before the school year starts, or right at the beginning of the school year for some of you. This is a great time to get ideas from each other. Otherwise, I will just be, hearing you, listening to you right now, and then I'm going to bring it back to the other SPDIG project officers and have a conversation about the challenges that were raised, and see what we can do about it. And that'll also give them a sense of working with their projects, the things to have conversations around. So first idea is to get all your challenges on one piece of paper, so to speak. And two, to give you all a chance to give each other ideas about what to do in the current situation. Any questions or any clarifications for the reason we're here today? Okie doke. So I'm going to go ahead and put myself on mute because I'm listening.
Hi, this is Cheryl Huffman from Oklahoma.
Hi, Cheryl.
I guess I'll get us started since I actually was the one who wondered if we could get together and talk about this, and Jennifer was kind enough to set this up. My leadership team, and we've been meeting all summer, and we of course have been concerned about our ability to continue collecting data. We're not able to collect a lot of end of year data that we generally do, or our response rate was really, really down, like to our end of year surveys. And we've been thinking with trepidation about how, we're going to be able to start out the coming year collecting the kinds of data we generally do, which is generally what a biggie that we collect at the beginning of year is screening data on reading and behavior, as well as catching up on fidelity assessments that may not have been done in the spring. And none of ours were done in the spring, so we have to really think about that. And whether we're going to compare beginning of year this year to beginning of year last year. My leadership team, my project director, is really concerned about the gaps in data that we're going to have. And how are some of our assessments going to be conducted, especially the screening, if it's going to be virtual when these instruments were never intended to be conducted virtual without the kind of monitoring that they normally have. And also, some of our sites and schools are thinking of changing their screening instruments to ones that they think will be better, will better accommodate a virtual setting. So we had other, we're also wondering about how we're going to collect our data on professional development. We've been looking at our collection instruments and we've been tweaking them and wondering if they will work. When we look at evaluating our professional development offerings, how it's being delivered, is that going to be a lot different if it's delivered virtually than if it's delivered face-to-face? And that's where we kind of are in the middle of it now. So, okay, there's a bunch, and now I'll mute.
Great. Thank you, Cheryl.
Hi, and this is Amy. I'll just kind of follow up on what Cheryl was saying. We're also having a lot of concerns about our participation rates with teachers as well, just, in the professional development last spring, and how that might continue into the fall, as well as the evaluation participation rates on our surveys. And one question we have is really, do we just do some different types of supplemental data collection? For example, instead of just focusing on observing teachers, which is going to be very hard virtually, particularly with restrictions around who's allowed access into those classrooms and whether or not the teachers can be recorded, that sort of thing. We can look at student work, but how does that affect our performance measures? Should we just assume we're not going to make some of those? Or should we be trying to change things? For example, our performance measure 2, the fidelity instrument we use, is very specific to the way the program was designed to be conducted in the schools. So should we just keep using it knowing that we're probably not going to make that measure this year? Or should we somehow refine that for just 1 year based on whatever different schools are doing? And that's also going to be challenging because every single district we're working with is going to have a slightly different model. So those are some of the challenges we're facing. And I know there are probably not a lot of answers at the moment, but definitely a lot of questions. Thanks.
Thanks.
Hi, this is Selena, and everything everybody else said, but I'm afraid if we change our fidelity or outcome data, then we can't really compare it over the course of the grant period. It's going to be like apples and oranges if we change it up. So, and EXO doing those 20% external fidelity assessments, like I've been trying to figure out how to do that and still have some reliability and validity of them being done. So definitely stumped on doing that.
This is Brent Garrett. It seems like the one piece that we can do, and it's the piece that we really, I shouldn't say trying to get away from, but maybe lessen the importance, is like training evaluations. It seems like most states I'm working with are going on with training, mostly online, some synchronous, some asynchronous. But, you know, we can certainly do our training reports. We can do training fidelity, you know, maybe in a slightly different way. And even coaching. I know one of our states is doing a lot of work just with leadership teams, and those leadership teams are continuing to meet. So, you know, I think we'll get some coaching data, and they're going to try to collect fidelity data in the spring. And who knows what schools are going to look like in the spring. So there's so much unknown there. But, you know, it almost seems like we're reverting back in some ways to more of, you know, training evaluations, maybe a little bit of coaching, but losing the student data, likely losing a lot of the fidelity of intervention data. And the other thing is where schools are opening. Now, we work in Georgia. I'm sure you all have been following the news, what's going down there. And so, you know, they are trying. And so I've got a feeling there'll be a lot of behavioral infractions and so forth with this new world we live in. But again, sort of follow up with Selena's comments, it's such a different environment. Can we really compare them over time?
All right.
With that student outcome data, we thought of just getting the number of kids that were doing traditional. We have like hybrid models where some could do it virtually, but they had to do it for the whole first semester, and then traditional. So we thought about getting the count of how many kids were doing it traditional, and then basing our behavioral data like office discipline, referral, suspensions, and such on that number instead of the total population for the school. But again, it's not going to be the same as what we've collected over the last 4 years.
It'd be an interesting study to see sort of what are, in places where they're doing hybrid at the same time. It'd sort of be curious on the student demographics, those that are staying home versus those that are going in.
Jennifer, has OSEP or the SIG network, have they like put down any expectations of what they're expecting from the SPDIGs, or is that still in conversation?
I think first we needed to do, well, you know, we were all waiting to see kind of what was going to happen with this school year, right? And now we're getting more of a sense of it, but just in the last couple of weeks, really, is when the school districts are announcing what they're doing. So there's that, knowing the context. Two, I wanted to hear all, you know, the universe of challenges you foresee before we make some decisions or provide any guidance. But that said, you know, just in my conversations with my project so far, certain things have come up, and so I've been able to start thinking about the program measures and the flexibilities that we might be able to do, like the 20% reliability check. I think this year we will need to be flexible on that. You know, just something that you brought up before. So there are some things that are just kind of obvious, like where we can be flexible, and there are other things that we need to hear from you first. I know one of my projects was talking about their fidelity measure is done completely by an external observation. And so I asked, could it be done as a self-assessment? Would it lend itself to that? And they said, yeah, you know, it's a possibility. And so I think there are some built-in areas we can be flexible in terms of student outcome data. You know, I think where you've used a statewide assessment before, thinking about any local pieces of data that you might, more localized pieces of data you might be able to get on student outcomes, like the student work idea, you know, that I hadn't thought of before. But I think, you know, we heard from Terry Marks and Tessie Rose Bailey about different kinds of data you could be collecting right now. And some of them are very easy to do virtually. So if you're doing Progress monitoring, there are things that are already done virtually. So, those are some of the possibilities. Because there's two different reasons for evaluation in this case. One is to show us what you're doing on your APR. Two is to let you know what's working, what needs to be done differently. And that next year, this is 2021, might be very different than 2021, 2022. So it might just be giving you the formative information you need to make changes this year. It's hard to say. Or it could be telling you some things that you've done that you might want to continue on down the road. But two reasons for evaluation. One is to show that, show OSEP and the larger audience how you're doing. Two is to let you know what you need to make changes in. But my understanding is that the concerns are more on the APR program measures, what you're showing OSEP. But maybe it's formative as well.
With that, Jennifer, I just got thinking, hadn't thought about before, but, to what degree do we redo the evidence-based PD worksheet? Because the processes outlined in those, at least probably for most of us, is going to look very different this year than what we've written for previous years.
Yeah, that's a great one. And that's not something I have given any thought to. So, I've thought about how things might look different, but I haven't thought about what that means for the worksheet.
How we approach training, how we approach coaching, performance assessment, all that is being done in a different manner.
Right. I think one of the interesting things, setting aside the GEPRA purposes of the worksheet, I think one of the interesting things, like if you look at the HQPD observation checklist, high quality professional development observation checklist from Noonan, Gomer, Erickson, and I always forget their colleague they created it with, that it's something that can still be used for virtual purposes, right? There's no element that's not relevant, however you're doing your work. And I think it's the same with the EVPD worksheet. You've still got someone in charge of coaching. You still got someone in charge of fidelity. You're still thinking about how you work with administrators. It's going to look different, but you're still thinking about how you're responding to all those components of it. So I think it still works. I think it is going to be different information in previous years, and you're going to, unless we make another change, you're going to want to think about how you can efficiently give us that information so it's not a time suck. But
Jennifer, this is Julie Morrison, and I did ask Amy about her observation checklist this spring when we went virtual, and I said, how do you modify it or adapt it if you're going to use it for virtual PD? And she said actually they looked long and hard at that and decided not to. That really all the items still apply. They got some pushback, but for the most part, they're sticking with that observation checklist. The elements that are, adult learning strategies are still relevant, whether it's delivered virtually or in person.
Yeah, I think the same, because I was doing a presentation, so I had to look deeply at it, and because I was going to be talking about it and sharing it, and I felt the same way. It's like you still need to, this is the 2017 version. It was just the easiest thing to pull up. You still need to give people some information beforehand about what they're going to be learning. You still have to have an agenda. You still have to connect with what they've learned before. That it's just, I think it is agnostic of the format.
Jennifer, this is Cheryl again. I've just finished my latest version of this checklist for my team. They wanted something simpler and shorter. And we had tried this out with like conference sessions and some just-in-time sessions, and it wasn't working well. So I've worked almost all last year on paring it down and trying to simplify it all. And I finally got it to something that they were happy with. We just looked at it again yesterday in a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked the question, I had said, okay, let's do this as if it, face to face, and then we'll think about it virtually. And when they looked at it and we've talked about it, we really didn't see much, like we're saying, that really needed to be changed. The only thing we did talk through some slight differences that would occur with virtual and decided we'd integrate those into our rubric.
That's great. I would be interested in seeing that. I'm guessing others would.
Is that kind of thing. And so we're not going with two different forms. We're going with the same form, but we're going to modify the rubric. And we really are feeling, and we're also starting to talk about, do any of our coaching activities, how will they look different or not look different? And we have both literacy coaches and systems coaches. And our literacy coaches are thinking not much difference at all. They think that the set of coaching activities that we track will work. And we're just starting to have that conversation with our systems coaches on a little different level.
Yeah. And I think those are great conversations to have. Probably all of you are already having as evaluators, but just looking through all your measures, seeing some are obvious, like the intervention or implementation fidelity measures, how are we going to go about capturing them? Some are less obvious, like student outcome measures or comparison measures that you all were bringing up earlier. But just thinking through, like, what could it look like this year, with an eye on, with the challenges, opportunities, with an eye to maybe we come up with an easier way that we'll use in future years, even when everyone is back face to face. But Cheryl, I'd be interested to see the new version, if you all are willing to share with everyone. And this is the 2020 version.
And it seems like the coaching observation tool, sort of a parallel instrument, would work as well. In most cases, I haven't looked at it line by line. But so that's sort of my point earlier. It's sort of the low-hanging fruit. I think we can get a lot of the more processed stuff. It's that student outcome. I think of the SIP in particular, where so much rides on a state test for most states. That
right.
SPDIG, the student outcome, be it behavior, academic, is important, but our program measures are ultimately what we're evaluated on, and that'll be incorporated, as I understand, in the new modification to the program measures. But
right.
And with the progress monitoring that Terry and Tessie getting the middle name or second name,
Tessie Rose Bailey.
On the progress monitoring, it's the samples are going to be smaller. The tools used across districts are very likely going to be different. I think Cheryl talked earlier about the screening, which seems to be more consistent, and you can make comparisons maybe a little bit easier when they're using different tools even. It's going to me, just be the biggest challenge. And I think it's the biggest challenge for the schools, certainly, as well.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I'm glad you brought that up about the SIP, because those of you who are deeply involved in the SIP work already know this, but the requirements for data are much different for the SIP than they are for us. Because it has to be connected to an indicator with the SPP APR. There's just all kinds of different concerns. So when it comes to student outcomes, first of all, if you're in the current cohorts of SPDIGs, which all you are, you don't have to have a student outcome for your program measures yet. So you just have chosen to have a student outcome, which we still want you to. And so, you get to play, you get to think about it, you get to try to figure it out. The SIP is much more restricted because of, it comes from IDEA, and then it's all different layers of things that MSIP is required to respond to when it comes to the SIPs.
And it doesn't just hit the indicator 17, like indicator 3. Some of those others are going to be real tough for them to report on.
Yep, absolutely. It's a different game because of the requirements that OSIP 2 then has to respond to. So I they've been working on things. They'll figure it out, but we do have a lot more room for flexibility. And my guess would be when it comes to GEPRA data, we're going to figure it out. We're going to do our best. And nobody in the world isn't going to understand that this was a different year than all others.
That is an understatement, right, Jennifer?
Yeah, I mean, I decided not to say is this unprecedented because I figured you guys would be sick of that one. Okay,
And
so
we can quote you on that. No one is not going to understand that this was a different year.
It's very DC speak, right?
Print up
Yeah,
T-shirt.
no, yeah. People aren't going to understand it's different. And in the end, when it comes to the program measures, we want to hit our numbers at OSEP so that we can show Congress, or we can show the budget office and the department. We want to show the great work you're doing, and that's really critical. But in the end, the most critical thing is that you're improving results for children with disabilities. And so how you get at that this year is going to look different. And perhaps the way you collect data on it is going to look different. And that is the most critical thing, not the data that we show, the GEPRA data that you show. So I just want to, I don't want another layer of anxiety for you all when it comes to GEPRA. I want you to know that we all, the SPDIG project officers, are going to be partnering with you in trying to figure out how to do it.
That's helpful, Jennifer. Thank you.
Well, so what haven't we brought up? So my little running list here, and Lynn is taking notes too, so we won't miss anything. But we talked about comparative data and how you might need to compare to a different group if you can, or you might need to make it non-comparative and it's just a snapshot in time. Screening, how can screening be done virtually? We have the FAQs from NCII. Let me see, I think I have a picture of some of NCII's. Yeah, let me show you this real fast. So we had their presentation, but they have a lot of great resources. They will continue to add more. They have this frequently asked questions on collecting progress monitoring. They have information about screening. They show videos of how to do different lessons. This isn't about evaluation, but just so you know, for your projects. So we're not without resources, but that said, if you think of something that, this would be really valuable to get another resource in this area, we can also make that request of them. Capturing data about professional development. Some of you saw that as an area that you felt more comfortable with data collection. Some of you saw that as an area that's going to be more challenging. The participation rates would drop in the participation in the actual training, and then also participation in the surveys, post-event survey. Considerations about supplemental data collection to support where you're going to have some gaps or smaller N size than in previous years. Could you supplement that with unusual data like student work that you haven't usually used? Fidelity measures where you had an outside observation, or just the fact that it's just going to look different, or they're probably not going to hit their mark because they're not getting the support that you would like them to. Should you make changes for a single year, or what do you do with it? And then the 20% reliability check, which I pretty much just told you, let's not worry about that so much right now this year. Systems, this is on the opportunity side. Systems coaching data can still be done. So if you're coaching teams, that's often still happening and a little bit easier to do virtually. Student data is going to be a real challenge. Talked about progress monitoring. as a potential place there. People are interested in, like the study within this all of different demographics, staying home versus in school and how they're doing. You're looking at student outcomes, the EBPD worksheet, having to enter new information into that, and smaller sample sizes for progress monitoring. What didn't we capture that are concerns?
This is Amy again. I'm really struggling with how we're going to observe coaching of teachers, those individual coaching sessions. We've already struggled with that when we're actually in person because it's kind of awkward to be having observations and stuff like that. So I'm interested in how other people have done that in the past, if they're observing a virtual coaching session, or what other people are thinking about that.
To me, that seems like this is almost an opportunity, because in the traditional sense, you have a external observer at a coaching visit, which is sort of abnormal. All of a sudden, here's my mom or dad with me coming to visit. Whereas if it's online, you're just another person on the call. And, now the coaching is going to probably look a little bit different being virtual versus face-to-face, but it enables us to be right there and to see and hear it.
We've started, and this is Cheryl in Oklahoma again. We've started, we've been talking about this too. Our literacy coaches are the ones that do the, we've been working on an observation instrument for them. They've been using some simpler, some kind of not so robust ones, and we've kind of come to the point where we've got something a little bit more, with a little bit more integrity. I think one of the keys that I see for them to be successful is the fact that they have established really good relationships with the people that they would, that they've been working with these people for 2 years. This is going into their 3rd year. They themselves are mature individuals and have been doing this kind of coaching a long time. All the webinars I've watched over the summer, it seems there's always been a component that says your relationships are so important. Teacher relationship with students is so important for engagement. Well, I think that the relationships that your coaches have established with the people they're working with is going to be key to them being able to do observations. Besides the technical things about whether we have to work with the districts to see if we can get through the firewalls and, how this will all work out. But again, I'm optimistic.
This is Stacy from Arizona. I've been thinking about those technical things as well with coaching, and we use the CCSSO formative assessment dimensions rubric. So it's already built in for self-reflection. And I'm wondering if we can lean more towards teachers self-reflecting on their lessons and then meeting with their coaches afterwards for those coaching sessions, or using the video feature where the teacher just records their session. So it's just the teacher and meets with the coach afterwards to go through that self-reflection rubric to support them.
Yeah. Yeah, I love hearing about these resources too, because it might be something that I've heard about previously but wouldn't remember now, and this will be helpful to capture in a document for this FDICS.
I did some virtual, this is Selena. I did some virtual coaching last year, some virtual observation of coaching last year. And what they did was put me through the Promethean board so I could see the whole team while they were meeting and hear them. And they kind of forgot that I was there. They couldn't see me, but I could see all the body, like all of it while it was going on. I did it twice with teams about 5 to 7 people, and it worked out really well.
Oh, great. Sounds like I've never heard of that, but it sounds like a cool resource.
The Promethean board, the big whiteboard that they use in front of the classes now. So that they just had the coaching session inside of a classroom so that I could be part of it without having to travel there.
Great. Yep, because one of the issues that people have raised, and is certainly going to be true, is that even if a school or a district is back in session, it doesn't mean that you are allowed into said school or district.
Yeah, or juvenile detention facilities or group homes either. I haven't been able to go into any of them, since the spring. So we've been doing Zoom meetings instead.
Yeah, I don't know that evaluators were ever welcomed warmly and face to face. So to what degree is it different now?
You're always welcome in Mississippi.
Good. What else have we missed?
We didn't talk at all about the third program measure, the percentage of funds spent on sustained coaching. But again, it seems like that may be relatively easy because it seems like most people are going out of training. So we know how much money and time's being spent with that. And coaching, I think, states are trying going forward with that. And so sort of that collection of activity we can do. Now, will that look different than previous years? But, typically we use our PD activity log as a way of tracking that activity. So that's continuing as is. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. And who knows, for people who have the fourth program measure, we're dealing with teacher retention.
Yeah.
None of my projects have that, so I have no idea how that's going to play out.
Well, I mean, the expectation is that teacher retention would be better than in previous years because people want to keep their jobs. But then when you think of health concerns and things like that, then maybe that makes it different. So I think I can see all these factors playing in, and I don't know what's going to end up as. One thing I wanted to say with the, oh gosh, you made me think of something, Brett, and I'm forgetting. Oh, setting your targets. You get to set your targets for program measure 2 about the fidelity and program measure 3 with the funds. And so having that conversation with your project officer about the appropriate place to set your target, using whatever data you have available to you about what that, the changes to the year, how it might affect your ability to meet the target, but have that conversation with your project officer. What makes sense this year, and set that target.
And I know we have data, for March, beginning of the new reporting year, is really when things shut down. And so we've probably got 3 months of data at this point to sort of look at and play with.
You were seeing all the opportunities, Brent. I'm very impressed.
Trust me, plenty of challenges, but again, it's sort of that low-hanging fruit. The training piece we've been doing for so long, and both from an evaluation side as well as those who provide it, and coaching similarly. It's when we're moving into that performance assessment that's going to be so tough.
Great. Okay, just to jog your thinking, I'm going to share my screen. They're very rough notes, but what we've said so far, and I kind of read out the first part of it. So anything that hasn't been said yet? All right, well, this is not the last time you get a chance to voice your concerns. You can just go ahead and email me if you want something that comes up for you after the call, because things will come up as the year goes on. As always, conversations with your project officer are critical. In this instance, we're trying to centralize our thinking about this because it's so new, and we want to make sure we give similar guidance to everybody. But but having a conversation with your project officer about setting targets, having conversations about different ways to collect data, just back and forth. And I think you as evaluators, as you have an idea or you have a question, I think using this group is a good idea. We can always bring you together. We can also, set up some kind of format for you to communicate with each other. We have the ability to do that on SIG Network. If you want to do wiki kinds of conversations, we have that ability. So use us as you would like, but I think we have a lot to learn from each other this year. We're all figuring it out. Okay. Well, thank you for joining us today. Thanks for being open with your concerns and where you see some opportunities. Much there's appreciation for each other like that. And yeah, good to see you, Julie.
Thanks for setting this up.
You're welcome. Thanks, Cheryl.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Attention. Yeah. Okay, great. Have a good afternoon.
Stay safe, everyone.